I wasn't sure exactly what you were looking for, but I know that a lot of teachers have not necessarily had voices simply because you're struggling between supporting your district and your students. And so I decided that I would at least voice some of my concerns that I have, or questions. But I am a teacher and a mom, and obviously a concerned person, citizen. And I do have some questions about the driving forces behind this education reform. And while I have those, because I continue to educate myself about this, I am most concerned about the impact that it is having on the most important people involved, and that is our children. And they are the ones who continue to suffer with the testing and the anxiety that they get from trying to meet these new standards. And just from the stress of all of the pressure that they have to try to feel like they are achieving, because right now there are many who are not. And when they got their scores, I know a lot of parents probably didn't share that, but a lot of students this year were put into AIS, that some of my own personal students that I don't believe belonged there. The Common Core standards, I don't think were created with the best interests of our children in mind. And I do think that they are tied, the standards and the assessments that are tied to these standards are actually a detriment right now. As an educator, I have seen firsthand the impact that it has had on my students. The Common Core claims that it supports a rigorous curriculum, but from teaching the modules this year, which I did teach for one module for each grade level, they were designed to support these higher standards, I don't agree that they are more rigorous. And they are centered around nonfiction texts that tie into novels that are not necessarily challenging. And there's more time spent reading nonfiction and discussing the nonfiction and rereading the nonfiction than actually spent on discussing the novels themselves. And although they explained that these modules are only meant as a guide and not as a scripted curriculum, they are written as such a scripted curriculum.
I'm sorry, I hate to interrupt, but what grade level?
I teach 7th and 8th grade English.
All right, thank you.
And although they say that you can adopt or adapt or ignore, the fact remains that a lot of people are trying to, or were thinking they needed to adopt them based on trying to meet the new standards. Since they were created to support the standards, using those modules people believed would ensure that the standards are met, and therefore the students would achieve better scores. And regardless of whether or not they chose to use it, the idea that we supported these modules as good curriculum, I have a problem with that. I don't find them to be good curriculum at all. Since the teachers and students are graded on these, a lot of classroom time is spent in a different way, and it is spent focusing on building these particular skills. These are not the only valuable skills: learning how to read nonfiction text, learning how to write with support and support a claim with text-based support. Those are not the only things. We are now missing all of the time that we would spend on enriching discussion in the classroom on literature. We don't do as much poetry. We don't have time for that. We have to really prepare our kids and focus them on meeting the standards that are going to be actually assessed. And those are the ones that are high stakes for us and for our students. That's the only things that they're assessed on. I also have a concern as a mom. I've watched my kids cry at the table when they are trying to do their homework, and they don't understand it. They are 1st and 2nd grade, and therefore some of these things are not appropriate for them. They do find there's frustration for them, and that is something that I don't really like to see with them. I want them to be happy and enjoy learning, and that doesn't seem to be the case on many days.
Question. How old are your kids?
I have a 6-year-old, a 7-year-old, a 14-year-old, and a 16-year-old.
God bless.
A couple of them escaped the Common Core, so that was all good.
The 6-year-old. Now, when she was in kindergarten and stuff, she liked school, she enjoyed school.
Yeah.
What are her feelings right now?
She still likes school. Her teachers are phenomenal, or her teacher is phenomenal, and they do try to keep the kids happy and learning and stuff. And she's a pleaser, so anytime she likes to read, those are good things. When she comes home, she wants to get her homework done, but she does sense frustration. And one day she was sick, and she said, well, I can't miss because I'm going to have too much homework.
Now, first grade?
She's in first grade this year.
Okay. And how much homework does she have each night?
She's actually pretty good. She probably only has 20 minutes a night and then some reading. She's not doing the modules. They're doing something a little bit different in our primary grades.
Okay, how about the 7-year-old?
He has a little bit more, but most of those are, he could spend probably close to an hour doing work, but I only make him do a few of the pages. They're more optional. The way that his teacher has done it. He does not enjoy it as much as he did before. They used to like to learn a lot more. They liked going to school. Right now they still like going to school as far as recess is concerned and lunch, but the engagement in the classroom is probably not as strong as before.
Well, a lot of the kids that I'm hearing getting 3 hours of homework a night.
Well, no, I have to say, in my district, that is not the case, but I do also, both of my kids are strong students. They are very, if this was a student who was struggling, I could see it taking a lot longer. I mean, she gets frustrated, but she also has a lot of help with me or the older children.
Okay, thank you.
What school district are you in?
New Hartford.
New Hartford. And which you teach at what?
New Hartford.
At New Hartford. Okay. My question is, so in determining your curriculum, are you given the books that you have to now teach, or do you have a choice?
Are you talking about this year?
Yeah, the new under Common Core. Did you have a choice before?
We had choice before,
Okay.
and we actually still do. Our district chose to, at least at my level, at the
Okay.
7th and 8th grade level, we decided we would go ahead and try the modules. It was the idea that let's understand this is what they're saying the Common Core is. This is what's going to meet those standards. Let's try it and see how it is. And none of the teachers that I work with in 7th or 8th grade were happy with it. They were not well written. They were focused on nonfiction. They were not focused on literature. It was, the kids were bored. And I actually had one of my students who I had in 7th grade said to me, why is English so boring this year?
What kind of nonfiction books?
Well, it wasn't nonfiction
Is it, are they books? What is the?
Yeah, they actually
I can't imagine taking 7th and 8th grade English and reading nonfiction.
Well, in 8th grade, it's not a nonfiction book.
Right.
It is, the literature piece is called Inside Out and Back Again.
Okay.
And it is about Vietnam. So all of the text that we use, the nonfiction texts, were based on Vietnam for the most part. And in 7th grade, the module that we used, it was A Long Walk to Water. That was the text, and it was about Sudan, and it was about the Dinka and Nuer tribes. So a lot of the nonfiction had to do with that. And it was the nonfiction that I would say was what the lessons were about for the most part. We would read, reread, analyze, summarize, and the kids were bored to tears. And so our district, in hearing that, we are adapting our other units and trying to incorporate more of the Common Core standards.
Do you find that the reading, well, it's kind of early to tell, but do you notice that the choices that you have, that this emphasis on nonfiction or not really literature helps or hurts the ability of children to read and discover and to imagine? And
Oh, well, that was I didn't get to it because
Right.
I got sidetracked, but the biggest thing the kids are missing now is that creativity, that imagination. On our assessments, voice is not valued. Therefore, it is not, you can actually teach a child to write a topic sentence, gather details for support, and a concluding sentence, and they can do okay on a scoring guide. But that doesn't include voice. So their imagination is not really engaged in their development of voice and independent thought, I don't think. It's always looking for support. They don't just generally it's not nurturing for the imagination or creativity at all. That's my experience so far.
If I could just for a second go back to this whole notion of the modules. Do you have any conception of who developed them, how they were developed? Is there a commercial aspect? Are they promoting a certain provider of educational services with these, or?
I'm not sure. I've only had experience with the 2 modules that I taught in 7th and 8th grade. As to, I don't know who developed them. I don't remember the companies. There's 2 of them on Engage New York. I know that that's
Yes.
the ones that we use were from Engage New York. And I know there's the Odell company that had one of them, and I don't know what the other one is, to be honest. I can't remember.
The reason I keep coming back to this, as I said, we had a hearing on In Bloom and the data warehousing, and they said the philosophy behind that is to make your job easier because you had all these choices, curriculum choices and remediation, and if they can get it all together in one place, they can tell you what you need to fix it, and I don't like that direction.
In the modules, there is no room for remediation. It actually says congratulate them on mastering this. I mean, they tell you what to say, and that apparently everybody gets to master that skill all at once. And
Well,
there's no differentiation at all.
I thought one of the most important things you had to say is you didn't have time to teach everything you wanted to get to. I mean, this is supposed to be enriching our kids, and I think you're having to take shortcuts on the things you want to teach them, and I think it's actually damaging their education. Not every kid does the same things the same way as the kid sitting next to them.
And our students who have learning disabilities, I think, are really seeing the most. It's very detrimental to them because you can't slow down for them. And really, the only time I have with them is if they have a free period when I have a free period, so I can go over that. And they're the ones who need that extra time, and it's just not written in that way.
Is it actually a script?
Oh, there's a
Like
script.
you read, good morning class, put
I
my
mean,
apple, put the apple on my desk,
There are moments of that, and it will say 18 minutes for this, and they say it's not a script, but there are scripted things. Make sure you say this at this time. There was one point when, and I had a student teacher this year, and I apologized to her for the fact that she had to come right out of college, and, she's all excited about this, but you're going to teach the module. And we would have this discussion, and at one point she said, I'm so frustrated because I know they just didn't get that, but there's no time to go back. I said, no, we have to make time. We're gonna go back and do it. And she said, well, it says here I have to say, give the definition of communism. And I said, okay. I said, is there anything else that we have to do? And she said, no, they just say it. And I said, well, that doesn't give them any details. That doesn't help. There's no connection. It's just, so I stopped and I said, does anybody understand this? And they're like, we have no idea. We know it's out there, but we don't know what it means. So they don't have any, you know what I mean? That's kind of, so there are scripts like that. Say this, give them this. This is the vocab you have to do. Yeah. I mean, it is written as a script, like somebody could go in and do it.
Did New Hartford adopt the modules? It was an optional.
It was, every grade level, I think that they decided what was going to work. So
Okay.
It was the grade level, and our superintendent of curriculum, we decided how we were going to approach it, as far as I know. And I can only speak from what I know of in my classroom and who I work with. And it was decided, he did allow us to go back because we kept giving feedback, and he said, okay, from here on, let's go with adapting instead of adopting.
How many years have you been teaching?
15 or so, I think.
So,
Sorry.
so has there been a big change
Oh, there's
in what
definitely.
you've had to do from the last 15 years till now?
Oh, yeah. And as far as my educational background when I got my degree was years before that. And so just the way that I was taught how kids think and how to teach kids and how to reach out to kids, yeah, things have definitely changed, more than once along the way. But this is the one area of concern I seem to have the greatest attachment to, because I feel like all creativity is going to be lost, and we're going to lose our poets and our writers and all the things that we have always valued. So.
Well, I think it goes beyond that too, because
Sure.
I remember teaching, and I had a kid at 5th grade who couldn't do the 9 times table, and I taught him how to do it on his fingers. And it was like I gave him the keys to the city. You just see a light go on in their eye. And I think that we're dimming those lights, when it comes to our kids' education. And you're not going to be able to do that because they're not giving you the opportunity to get creative, to make it personal. A lot of times it's a personal connection you know, that you have to make in order for this stuff to become real
Right.
and for them to use it. And what I'm seeing is we're walking away from that.
There is a general walking away from that connection, and one of the things we always say is that the kids have to know you care before, you know, you can even engage them, and I don't know that they sense that right now, because it really is a lot of focus on the testing, and you're just not able to take the time out and really engage them and find the things that interest each of them in the same way that you would have been in the past. And you know, like I said, for me as a teacher, I fear, but for me as a parent, watching what my kids are going to go through, I am definitely concerned.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you for
Thank you.
speaking.